So for those of you who've read Business Better, or any of the blogs I've written on occasion, you may have noticed that I drop the odd musical Easter egg here and there. I like music and I like fun, and I was talking with my son Huxley how to keep this going. Now videos are also being recorded. So we agreed that each episode should include a small treasure hunt for the musically minded that enjoy a challenge. So from now on, there will be 3 to 4 links, references in each article, at least one song title and one lyric or reference, each leading to a different song. To mark the launch of this game, this week there are 4, 2 titles and 2 lyrics. So see if you can spot them. I'll disclose what they are at the end, and do let me know if you spot any that I missed. So here we have episode 3 from my Different Minds, Better Systems trilogy. I've been dissecting our views on dyslexia, ADHD and autism, prompted by my being told on LinkedIn by a total stranger that I was disabled. Being neurodivergent can certainly be both a blessing and a curse, and there's no doubt we can represent both of these to those around us. Last week I asked, is this a superpower? And today we'll look at getting the best from neurodivergent people. In the context of Business Better and business in general, allowing the positive attributes of neurodivergence to shine possibly matters most within teams. Neurodivergent individuals can be contradictory in their nature. All at once, they're often exceptionally valuable and frequently difficult and very misunderstood. Used well, these team members are force multipliers, but used badly, they become frustrated, disengaged, and at times incredibly disruptive and destructive. The responsibility, of course, sits with leadership. Now, here are a few principles that I've seen work more than hinder. First, clarity beats ambiguity when it comes to execution. Second, put the focus on the outcome. Don't be process obsessed. Leverage strengths deliberately, remove unnecessary friction, and protect energy. Get this right, and those with neurodivergent tendencies will often be among the most valuable people in the business. Get it wrong, and you don't just lose performance. Tension will spread across the entire system. Another trick that can be incredibly valuable is allowing space for creativity. For example, you might allow the neurospicy one day each week to just explore. This will keep us happy, and the outcomes and ideas we conjure up during playtime will at times be priceless. Another trick that can be incredibly valuable is allowing space for creativity. For example, you might allow the neurospicy one day each week to explore. This will keep us happy, and the outcomes and ideas we conjure up during playtimes will at times be priceless. Those of us whose minds wish to wander need guardrails in order to achieve results that make an intentionally positive difference alongside the freedom to maintain happiness. Without these, we can easily find ourselves becoming lost souls swimming in a fishbowl. And it's often surprising for the less creative just how much benefit playtime can bring. Did you know that Post-it notes, a multi-billion-dollar product, came from playing around with something already deemed as useless? Google had a 20% rule early on. This made it rather stand out as a company, very attractive to work for. It also spawned Gmail and Google Maps. It took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child. Pablo Picasso. Providing guardrails for outcome-driven work is a must, and happy neurospicy people will often do twice the work of others in the same time, as they can focus on steroids. For founders too, guardrails help and freedom helps. Balance is the key to success. Often the real leverage in business sits not in hiring more people, but in understanding the ones you already have. At times, my deeper advisory work steps into helping founders redesign how their teams operate. Who does what, where people thrive, where they don't, and how the system supports them properly. Get that right and the performance takes off without adding headcount. More importantly, the founder often gets their time and their headspace and their life back. It's one thing to say different minds think differently, but it's quite another to actually use that in a business. So let's get practical, shall we? Let's look at the core idea. For the purposes of this piece, I'm going to focus on creativity because it's the most visible way that this shows up in business. But I do acknowledge it's not the whole story. What changes sits underneath. how our attention, processing and execution actually work. Creativity, at its simplest though, is the ability to form novel connections. Neurodivergence often involves different patterns of thinking, attention and perception, so the overlap isn't mystical, it's structural. Different wiring leads to different associations, which leads to potential for originality. But potential is not output, right? Output depends on environment. So what are the three kind of common patterns? Now, before I dive into the three diagnosed conditions of neurodivergence, I do need to caveat this does not deal with extreme cases, and every case of each type of neurodivergence is different. Both my wife and I are dyslexic, yet our experiences are very, very different. We're two drifters in very different worlds. And this is a broad brush summary, to say the least. But that said, in a business context, these three patterns show up again and again and again. So first we have ADHD, idea generation and movement. Okay, people with ADHD tend to generate lots of ideas, move very quickly between concepts, make unexpected connections. This is classic divergent thinking. There are plenty of sparks, but the trade-off is consistency. Without structure, all of the activity becomes noise. And with structure, however, it can be harnessed and become forceful momentum. Number 2 is autism. And that is about depth and precision. Autistic thinkers often show intense focus, strong pattern recognition, preference for systems and detail, and this produces a different kind of creativity. They can be highly original, technically precise, and structurally sound. While ADHD is jazz improvisation, autism is more like Bach, and the challenge here is not capability, but flexibility. In number 3, we have dyslexia, and that's kind of big picture and narrative. Dyslexia appears to be particularly relevant in business. It's often associated with big picture thinking, spatial reasoning, storytelling, and many dyslexic founders don't win on process alone. They win because they hold a different perspective of life. Linear thinking is often harder for dyslexics, and their brains have discovered and adapted and adopted a different route to reason and understanding. The part most miss is what then? None of these are inherently valuable on their own, right? Each certainly comes with trade-offs. The same traits that drive creativity, especially in the neurodivergent, can also disrupt execution. They can increase overwhelm and create inconsistency. So the question is not, is neurodivergence linked to creativity, so much as what conditions allow different types of minds to produce value? Execution is power. Let's look through a founder's lens. We see this consistently across business. Most interesting founders think differently, see angles that others miss, break models that should work. But those who succeed long term manage to achieve something else. They build structure around their thinking. They surround themselves with complementary people, and they create systems that catch their own blind spots. The magic is not the individual, it's the interaction and the implementation. I saw this very clearly when operating property development business. Working with architects, the instinct is to give them freedom, to let them create. But what I learned, reflecting upon both myself and the conversation I had with architects and other creatives over the years, was the opposite. The very best work came when they were constrained, pushed into a corner and forced to solve tighter problems. Give them a box and they'll find a way out. Without constraint, you get ideas. With constraint, you get outcomes. This is a large part of what I do. Founders don't usually lack ideas. We often lack structure around those ideas. We chase too many directions. We build complexity too early. We operate without clear constraints. My role helping others is to bring their energy back into alignment, to simplify, to structure, to stabilize, and to focus. We need the way the founder naturally thinks to become an advantage. So often it acts just as a liability. Now, being clear, neurodivergence isn't creativity. It doesn't guarantee creativity. What it does is increase the probability of unconventional thinking. In the right environment, that becomes value. In the wrong one, it becomes noise. The difference is not the person, it's the system around them. So our musical eggs were Clarity. Clarity is by Jacob Collier. Lost Soul Swimming in a Fishbowl. Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. Think Differently. Think Differently is by the Wu-Tang Clan. And Two Drifters in Very Different Worlds is a slight diversion from a lyric from Moon River. I chose the Audrey Hepburn version. So how many did you find? And can you suggest any others? Lastly, I leave you with a question. Do you provide yourself and your team the environment to get the best out of you all? See you next week.